Hey guys, just thought we'd make a quick video. As our Facebook followers would know, we've been doing a lot of testing on a new turbo upgrade for the VDJ 200, and part of that was upgrading injectors as well. But yeah, just messing around on the dyno, and we saw a bit online about how restricted the Donaldson Airboxes are meant to be. Well, straight away we noticed with our turbo testing, once we get above, sort of a decent sort of everyday boost target that we might chase with VDJ 200, that the factory airbox became a restriction. So we changed out to a Donaldson on this as part of the testing process, and what we found straight away was we saw 10 horsepower gain. Now, straight away, the restriction shows on the airbox, right, on the lid of the airbox. So what we thought we would do is run it up with just the straight out airbox lid on its own. There is no restriction from that point, right? That is the size of the pipe, the intake, blah, 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 right? So we run that up, and this is what we saw. So we ran it up with just the lid on, and here's what we see on the dyno, guys, right? So the power's a little bit scraggly because the map signal's not the very best, right? But we're commanding sort of 210 kPa, and we're sort of seeing, if you're fairly happy to see pretty much what we're asking for through there, 1 or 2 kPa above. And then as we get over the other side here, she starts rolling off as, poor old diesel, don't want to rev that hard, does it? So anyway, there's the baseline, and we're targeting sort of 310, and we're seeing pretty much what we're targeting on the data logger as well as what we're seeing here on the dyno screen. So the element's back in, guys, and the lid's back on, and it's all back to how you would run it on the street. And we've done a run up on the thing to have a look and see what we saw. Now, Donaldson have got indicators on their filter. Now, this one here is post the filter to show any restriction is across the filter. Now, Donaldson have put that on there to show you, if the filter's getting full of dirt or whatever the deal is, it needs addressing. Now, obviously, they've got a range that they're using it in, and we're seeing a bit more restriction across this because we're sort of chasing, some decent amount of boost and moving a fair amount of air out of this thing, right? So, we're sort of seeing 5 kPa of vacuum, right? So we're seeing a restriction of 5 kPa. Now, what I did is I put a second meter on it such that we could see the restriction. This is on the downstream side, so it's before the element, right? That the first one being post element. So what's the difference between the two? This is seeing the amount, the rest of the intake tract, and we're seeing 4.75 kPa. So the drop across the filter is 0.25 kPa. That isn't much restriction, guys, right? That is next to nothing. But what effect did that have upon power? We'll have a look at that and see what the dyno result shows. So what did it look like on the dyno? Right, well, here's the results, guys. The red is just the lid only. The green is the lid back on. As you can see, they look like the same car. The only thing that shows anything up at all is we see a loss of boost, right, after around about 3,500 RPM here, 3,600 RPM, right? By 4,000, we're losing around about 6-7 kPa of boost, right? Which, it's still within the realms of where it should be, right? But, we're talking, sort of 4,000 RPM around about, the very top end of flow. So there is some flow restriction there. So, but is that flow restriction worse than any other airbox on the market? Well, if someone wants to send us through their thing, and we'll back to back it again with that on there if they want, if they think their thing is so much better up top there than everybody else's. But we want to make sure that it's got the same micron filter and that we're seeing with a Donaldson. We don't want something that's got a bit of fly wire in there that we go, oh yeah, look how good our airbox is, right? So, we know how well the Donaldson filters. We've also seen that. We've seen it's proven. So we are seeing some restriction up top. I'm sure if I allowed the vane to chase that, I could get rid of that restriction, but I keep the vane in a place where it's not going to keep, you know, cranking vane in to try and bring that boost target back, or that boost back up to target. So, you know, missing by 6 kPa, yeah, okay, a little bit. Difference in power, next to none. Have a look, guys, next to none, right? So now let's have a look and see what it did with AFR. And AFR, well, we can see where that boost falls away there a little bit, and it sort of richens itself up a little bit up top there. But, you know, we're talking after 4,000 RPM. And the interesting thing is it actually shows itself as being a little bit leaner early. So, you know, work that one out. But anyway, end of the day, guys, is there massive restriction with this airbox? Well, I can tell you that what we see over a standard airbox, it's a vast improvement. The biggest restrictions we see are a lot of fabricated snorkels that are, you know, down around the 4-inch thing, and they're just so long that, you know, any long bit of pipe like that's going to induce pumping loss. But, you know, outside of that, is this going to, you know, we're chasing, you know, real boost here, as you can see, and we're not seeing the restriction in something that's well above what an OEM or even tuned up stocker would be running after. So, and, you know, if you are sort of driving standard turbos that hard, well, I doubt it if the airbox is going to be the cause of your failure. Hope we got something out of that, guys.